My virtual obsession, my romantic thriller, is now available on Amazon and other online retailers. This book explores the intersection of loneliness, love, and how chasing perfection through technology can lead to fantasy and reality colliding. My virtual obsession out now.
Welcome to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We are so excited to have you joining us on this journey where we explore different ways to empower your soul, whether it's healing in your kitchen or all the way up in the corporate world. Come with us as we look into different ways to heal your mind, body, and soul.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters. This is a content note. This episode contains discussions around childhood sexual abuse and trauma. Listen with your own discretion. Take care whilst listening and pause as needed. Now let's begin this powerful discussion.
Hey everybody, it's Crestani with another episode of Willow Healing Matters, and today I am joined by the lovely Darlene Lekowski. So she is a speaker, author, advocate, and most importantly, a survivor who transformed her decades of pain into purpose, hope, and healing for herself and others. After 50 years of silence about the sibling sexual trauma and abuse, which is shortened to SSTA, she endured as a child. She found her voice and courageously stood for truth, ultimately winning the civil lawsuit brought against her by her own brother. Today, Darlene inspires audiences to reclaim their voice, their purpose, and their power. She partners with SSTA and sexual assault organizations worldwide and speaks at conferences, career events, and corporate gatherings about resilience and the freedom of speaking your truth. So a big welcome to the show, Darlene.
Thank you so much, Catherine. I'm really excited to be here.
I know. But there's so much in your story to unpack there, as much as you feel to, obviously. But coming back from sexual assault as a child and going through that multiple times and then going through a lawsuit with your own brother. Wow. How did you pick yourself up from all that pain and then start to channel it into something else?
Well, that's kind of the hardest part. So, I had trauma as a little girl. I put it in a box. I thought it would go away, but when you put trauma in a box, it never goes away. It bubbles up. And I had several PTSD moments that I didn't even know I had PTSD. I wasn't diagnosed with PTSD till I was 58 years old. And my abuse started when I was 7. And then I get thrown into a trial. My brother sues me for defamation. I countersue him because he's out telling everybody I'm a psychopathic liar. I forget the other words he was using. It doesn't really matter. But, I win the trial. In less than an hour, the jury says I'm the one telling the truth and I think I'm healed. Well, that's not how healing works at all. I won a trial. That's awesome. That's, I was validated, but I need to go through almost a reawakening, like an understanding of justice is not necessarily the trial. Justice had to be about first letting go of the burden of my secret, which I was forced into. But then I had to let go of all of the bitterness and anger. And I was so pissed off. Like, how dare he sue me? And only until I let go of all of that pain and bitterness and anger was I able to heal.
And it's almost learning to forgive the unforgivable, but then having another layer on top of it, right? It's just like a double whammy.
Yeah. And the shame, as abuse victims, oh my gosh, we carry the shame. And the shame was never ours to carry, but we do. And when I was forced to tell my children, all of them who were in their 20s, I was so ashamed. And I'm like, oh, what are they going to think of their mother? It's going to be awful. I was trying to protect them from this pain. And I told all 3 of my children, and my daughter turned to me and she said, Mom, I love you. I believe you, but you need to forgive yourself first. I don't hear that you're forgiving yourself.
Yeah, that's powerful.
I know. Yeah. And that helped me a lot. Go ahead.
Oh, sometimes our kids are the greatest healers, right? And reflectors back on us, and they'll say things that we truly don't want to hear, even if it is
Yeah.
for our own growth and benefit.
Yep. Yeah. All these years, I thought I was protecting them from the pain. And my sons, who are twins, they were like, Mom, why didn't you tell us sooner? You're such a different person now that your secret is burst wide open. And only by opening up my box, by letting it explode, and by shedding myself of the shame and the bitterness, was I able to be a completely different person for my family, for my husband.
Yeah. And well, it's because you are hiding a part of yourself, right? Because so often we don't choose not to love the darkness, or we choose not to love the secrets, where it's just part of who you are. It's your story, it's what you've been through. And when you keep that hidden, you can never show up authentically just as you need to.
Exactly. I was in denial. I had, and to your point, I had almost two different personalities. I had the little Darlene who was hurt, who was betrayed by her brothers, who was abused, who learned to survive. And all those survival tactics I used as adult Darlene. So I became a very successful businesswoman, really good at sales, because I said I was always going to have to win, because I was never going to let those brothers see me fail. But the problem with using all your survival tactics in your adult life is if you always have to win, your husband's always your opponent. You're always fighting your children. And I had to become one person. I couldn't be the two different Darlenes anymore.
Yeah, well, you were fighting yourself too, really.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah. And when do you get peace? Because, like, I know for me, like, when you say people like, oh, what's your measure of success? I'm like, just feeling at peace, and in myself, like that for me. And you never get that when you're constantly at war with yourself and constantly at war with those around you, especially your family. Where do you call home if you don't feel like you can even be yourself at home?
I know. I used a lot of survival tactics to stay out of that home, but it just, and the dynamic of a family member doing this to you, that's what's so difficult for survivors like me. And all these years, I thought I was the only one. And I thought I was all alone, so I couldn't tell. I vowed I was never going to let my parents know, and they didn't. But now, since I've gone public, there are millions of survivors. There's people I partner with in Australia, in the United States, in the UK, and I feel like now I have a community. People get what I went through. And I don't want other people to go through the hell that I have. And that's why I'm publicly speaking out, because did you know that 1 in 20 children in a classroom are probably getting sexually abused by an older brother or sister right now? That's how common it is. It's so sad.
It is. Can you think about, like, in Australia, our average classrooms are 20 to 30 kids. It's like one in every class, essentially.
It's as common as a food allergy. And I didn't know this, but it's 3 to 5 times more common for a sibling to be abusing the child in the family than a parent or uncle.
Wow.
I know, but nobody talks about it because it's so shameful.
And I know this is a weird question, but why did they feel it happens in the first place? Like, what leads up to that kind of environment that it's okay, like the sibling feels it's okay to do that? Because there's obviously some level that they feel they can do that.
Yeah. There's still a lot of research around that, Catherine. What they suspect, and there has been some research around it, that exposure to pornography, that's why child on child abuse is becoming more and more prevalent than ever, sadly, because of the iPhone. Kids have access to more and more. The most common form of sibling abuse is the abuser is 5 to 9 years older. So I'm a 7-year-old, 13, 15, the hormones are raging, the exposure to porn, just the feelings. And they go for the person that's alone in the house, the most vulnerable person. And I was the youngest of 5, and I was the most vulnerable.
Wow. And yeah, it's so interesting because it's almost like the shift and having more access to it, right, has allowed this growth to kind of happen. Because, when we were younger, it wasn't so accessible. You had to go to the shop and get the magazines if you were, and that sort of thing. It wasn't just, you can just bypass whatever parental codes you've got on the phone, if there is any, and then find your way onto whatever you want to do. And even It's really interesting too, because it's almost like it has to be this secret all the time, and it has to be, and then there's this contrast with sex, whereas sex is used as a weapon, but at the same time sex can be such a beautiful thing. So there's this very weird contrasting, I want to say, paradigms happening in society, and creating these different environments where this can happen.
Yeah. And sex was used as a weapon. I mean, I was a little girl, vulnerable, betrayed, and my brothers threatened. And most older siblings who have abused the younger sibling, sometimes it's a girl abusing a younger boy, sometimes it's a boy abusing a younger sister or brother, but they threatened that if I ever told, I would destroy the family, that I would be the one who would be at fault. I was the one who was dirty. I was the one, all of that shaming. And so it really scares victims like me. And this is why I'm done hiding. I'm done being afraid. I mean, the average age of a sibling sexual trauma and abuse victim who actually goes public is 52 years old. I was 58 when I went public. And I don't want people to do that. I want little girls and little boys to say, wait a minute, this is happening in my household. I want parents to talk to their children. They talk about stranger danger. They talk about stop, drop, and roll when a fire happens. We should be saying run, L, and tell.
Yeah.
It's so difficult for these children to really feel like they're safe, to feel like they can tell and not be the one to be blamed. I mean, I grew up in the 70s and nobody talked about their problems. So that was even worse for me. And there was no internet. Like, I really thought I was the only one. Like, this was some secret between me and my brother only.
Yeah.
Most victims do.
Yeah. It's just really heavy, Darlene. Like, this is like, and especially if you're a parent and you didn't know what was going on, then that brings up a whole different level of
Yes.
Of everything as well, because it's like, as a parent, you want to keep your child safe, but if it can't even happen in your own home, where's, there's then the shame spiral starts there too, right? It's like, oh my goodness, I couldn't even protect my own child. I didn't even know I had to protect them from their sibling. You don't think that way. You just try and not. You don't. Yeah, that's what I mean. I'm speechless, because I'm like, how do you even manage that situation on so many levels?
I know. Well, that's why one of the organizations that I volunteer with, it's called 5 Waves. They're headquartered here in the US, but there's Blue Borage in Australia, who also talks about sibling sexual trauma and abuse and helps victims. Is one of the channels is for the parents, having the parents cope. Even the abuser, it's still their child. That child who abused also needs help. And so there are, lots of organizations, 5 Waves, Incest Aware, Blue Borage, SST Aware. When I first started on this a year or 2 ago, I didn't know about any of them. So that's the good news, is that more and more is coming out, and people like me who are becoming brave and telling my story. But, while my book is about my abuse, it really isn't all about the trauma. It's not really about what they did to me. So it's not all sad. You know what I'm saying, Catherine?
Yes.
It's really about what I did to survive and what I did to live my life forward. And at the end, it becomes a story of resilience and hope. And I hope that your listeners understand that difficult things happen to people and life is hard, but what do you do with it when you get hit with something as bad as mine?
Yeah. Amen. And I feel it's really pertinent that you bring that up too, because no matter how big or little your trauma is, it's how you've learned to walk through that and speak your truth so that you can be fully yourself and embrace all parts of you again.
Yeah. I often say, there are so many moments that every single person has a box. What's your box? Mine was dark and deep and awful. But are you cheating? Are you stealing? Like, what are you hiding? What's secret? And it could just be you have a drinking problem. I don't know. But until you open up that box, until you let everything out, and for me, it exploded, That's the only way you're going to heal. That's the only way you're going to get peace, because there's always hope under the lid of the box. So you've got to open it up to let hope and joy in.
Yeah, and if you never open the box, the light can't flow in, right? Like you can't, if you keep it, and a lot of people don't realize how much it actually impacts your body as well, because when you're hiding that many secrets, it actually manifests in your organs. If you're feeling shame all the time, it's going to start showing up in your immune system because you're shameful of even showing up in the world, and it's going to, if you're angry all the time and hiding your anger, your liver's going to shut down. If you're always sad all the time and you're hiding that behind a happy facade that I'm happy, your lungs are going to start to not work. And it's, you can't keep these secrets forever, because in the end it will manifest in a physical way, which a lot of people don't realize that too. And even with kids, my son's very sensitive. So like if he's out of whack, I can sense it, because I'm like, hey, you're not yourself today. What's going on? But sometimes when we're in the busyness of life and going, we miss some of those signs. So even he was miserable at school, absolutely miserable. And he started to push back on so many things, like even going to bedtime. Bedtime was really hard. We'd ask him to do something simple and we're like, what is going on? And when we sat him down and we said, actually, we know you're not happy at school, we're going to pull you out. He was just so happy. He said, I thought you didn't know. And he's like, I thought you didn't know, and it was and he didn't want to go to bed because he didn't want to get up to go to school the next day. That was what it came down to. And this is where sometimes being able, like you said, to talk to your children and allow them safe spaces and not dismiss it. Because yes, life is busy. Yes, we have all these things, but you still need to create opportunities where you can just talk. And often the biggest downloads are when they go to bed. That's what I find. I don't know with your children, but just before it's meant to be bedtime, you get the whole recap of everything that happened in their day.
Yeah. My kids are now in their 20s, but I totally remember those days. Yeah. I totally get it. I mean, for me, it became hypervigilance. I was over controlling, perfectionism, over functioning. I was on the outside perfect, quote unquote, but in the inside, I was still the scared little girl that was incredibly hurt. And to your point, even though I had shoved that box down, the box kept leaking. You can't keep it closed. And, going back to the trial, Catherine, after winning, I realized everything I was doing was focused around my brother. And I think that's what we do. We focus on the person that hurt us, even if it was somebody who said a terrible thing. It doesn't have to be abuse like mine. But until I turned that around and said, I'm not going to focus on him anymore. I really don't care about him. I didn't get the apology that I thought would heal me. So when you don't get the apology, you have to take your own agency. And I said, I'm going to do this for me now. What do I need to be whole? What do I need to be fulfilled? And I'm going to reject anything and anyone around me that doesn't get me on that path. And I lived 50 years not having that enlightenment. But until I burst open the box, I have it now. And I'm a different person because of it.
And so you then took this and put it into a book, which is amazing. Do you want to tell us a bit about your book and how it was birthed into the world?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, I won a trial, so I think I'm healed. But I just felt so flat. And I was like, you know what? I need more healing. And I had the trauma as the child. I lived my trauma on the stand. Now I'm going to write about my trauma. And that's okay because it became incredibly cathartic. Writing the book was the greatest thing I did. And I still work full time. So I hired a ghostwriter. She helped me. She was like a fourth therapist guiding me through the journey. And it just became the most wonderful piece for me. And I healed throughout the entire process. And now I'm here to heal others. And the book is called Shattering Silence, a story of survival, justice, and the power of telling the truth. And it's on Amazon. You can get it on paperback, hardcover, ebook, as well as audiobook. It came out April 2nd, 2020 on Amazon. And you can go to my website too to get it.
Which is, so I love the title. I love that it's called Shattering Silence, because that's what you have to do. You have to come through. And I know a lot of people who listen to this podcast and this is why it's funny, because that's why I started my podcast, was to shatter the silence, essentially. It's like, no, I need to put my voice out there. I need to stop being scared of embracing who I am and my spirituality and everything else. So I just started a podcast. But that's the whole point. It's whatever way you feel. And it's amazing how many clients I've had actually who have been through massive traumas. And I'm like, you need to write a book. Even if you never publish it, you need to write it all down and let it out, because those memories need to be acknowledged and they need to be loved and they need to be seen in whatever way. And I feel that's why it becomes quite a cathartic process, because you're actually just letting it all out rather than, keeping it all in. And even if you never publish it and it's just for you, you've found a way to channel it and get it out.
Right. And if you never tell your parents, like I didn't tell my parents, I vowed, I was so scared. Tell somebody, confide in someone. I confided in my girlfriends over the years, and all 6 of those girlfriends testified for me at the trial. I had a therapist. You have to find a release in order to keep moving forward.
Well, like we touched on before, the more you keep shutting it down, the more you shut down too. It's like, and so many different levels. And I feel like you bring up an important point too about you need support. You need to find people around you. Like you said, if you don't feel safe in your family for whatever reason, then find other people outside of that too, that you trust and that you can feel vulnerable enough with to speak your truth and get it out that way. And then you can come up with a plan with someone who even might be just a neutral third party and comes in from the outside, rather than possibly going to, someone in your family that can be very charged. So
right.
Are there signs possibly that parents can look for with their children that might indicate that something's not in alignment or something weird's going on?
Well, I'm no researcher or scientist, but I think a lot of it has to do, Catherine, with what you were saying you noticed in your son when school wasn't right. Notice the behavior changes. For me, I had constant nightmares every single night starting at 7 years old. And there was a reason for that. And, my parents just thought it was growing up. They never asked me, what are the nightmares? Why do you have the nightmares? And I'm not blaming my parents. I grew up in a very, very conservative household. My mom owned a Christian bookstore. My dad was a big pillar in the community. So I was afraid. I truly believed I was going to destroy my family. And, for me, 90% of my family was good. I didn't want to lose the 90%, even though 10% of it was poisoned. And so I just did every strategy I could to stay out of that house and never be alone.
Yeah, which is tricky. But yeah, so I guess it's just, and ask questions
I know.
too, right?
Ask questions. Yeah. Look for behavior patterns. Well, I forgot. This is what I said earlier. I had PTSD starting at age 7. I wasn't diagnosed till I was 58. I had some pretty bad anger issues. Like I would blurt out in anger. And so many times I came so close to telling. As a parent, I would look for that too. I would look for, why is this child angry or reactive at a very unreactive moment? Like, why are they behaving in such a different way?
Yeah, why are they so triggered by that when it should just
that's the better word.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And even, start to look at like the levels under that, So for years I worked with children, and you just learn to listen. And sometimes they'll tell you stories, or they'll do drawings, or they'll do these weird little things. And you like, what can you tell me about that a bit more? And, and sometimes, yes, it is their imagination, but where's that imagination come from? Like where is it stemmed from? So they're like little things I've learned to look for with kids, and even I've had clients who could see spirits, right? And their parents were like, oh, they're just making it up. I'm like, no, they're not. They're actually not. Like, you need to go do this at home. And they're like looking at me. I said, I can see the spirits they're seeing. You need to get rid of them, and they're like, oh, hang on. But it's just, that's why they came into my world too, because, I was someone that could provide. So when kids tell you things, never think they're lying, because kids find it really hard to lie. Like, just
Yes.
see where the truth is. Sometimes the truth gets extended, because, whatever it might be. But at the same time, when children share with you something vulnerable like that, never dismiss it. Even if you don't understand it, allow them to have that space where they feel they can still come and share and confide in you. I feel that's...
Well, and also I look back and I don't think my mom and dad ever had the sex talk with me, if you will, or the stranger danger talk. I mean, when you're talking with your children, I have a story of a woman who accidentally disclosed that she was being abused by an older brother because her parents were giving her the stranger talk and saying, don't let anybody come near you. Don't let anybody touch you. And she said, you mean like Billy, my brother, who's doing it right now? And so that was crazy that came about. But just having conversations with your children, you never know what's going to come up. And I think the more we open up, the more we expose children that you're in a safe environment. It's okay to tell. I don't want this to happen in the very first place, but let's start having the conversations with our children so they're not afraid and they don't wait till their 50s to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. And like, it just comes back to, again, creating the conversations and the space to have the conversations too. And like you said, and sometimes you just have to share stories. Like, I found that, especially with kids, if they don't feel safe enough, you can go, oh, I had this story happen to me, or this story happened to this person I know, especially if you've got that intuition or that inkling that there's something's not right here, and that can be enough for them to go, oh, they understand, they get it, I can share now. So I guess it's about, if you've gone through a trauma, first of all, learning to shatter the silence, like you said, like in your book. But secondly, if you have children or grandchildren, just creating spaces that allows them to share whatever's happening in their life with no judgment, no comments. And sometimes it can be really hard, but you just have to let them share and be in that space.
Yes. Yeah.
And as we start to finish our time together, Darlene, I asked the guests that come on the show, if you could heal or change something in the world, what would it be?
I would hope that no child is ever sexually abused, and that no child, if heaven forbid they are, that they never feel alone and they never are afraid to talk, and they shatter the silence the moment anything traumatic would come near them.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you.
And if people want to come and find more about you, I know you mentioned your book is on Amazon, which is very exciting. But if they want to come learn more about you, or have you come speak, or learn more about SSTA, where can they come and find you?
Sure. So follow me on Instagram at Darlene Lekowski. I also am on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, all under Darlene Lekowski. You can sign up for updates. I am moving my platform forward where I am going to become a motivational public speaker, but it's going to be about, opening up the box. And so, my book and my platform, yes, it's about the trauma, but it really is for anyone who's ever had anybody threaten to steal their purpose, their joy, or their peace. That's what my story is about. Open up the box, let hope in, let the light in, and bring joy in your life. And you will live a much more satisfying life forever.
100% agree with that. Definitely.
Wonderful. I learned it the hard way. Don't wait 50 years, please.
Yeah, but at the same time, someone once said to me, if you knew how to get from A to Z, why would you do everything in the middle? Like, why would you,
That's true. Well, you learn. Yes, you're right. You're right. I have learned a lot over the years.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Darlene, for sharing your story, for speaking and coming out of your silence, but also creating this book as an offering of a way for people to see how you went through the trauma and then came out the other side, and how you brought hope and light and yourself back into your life again.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Thank you for listening to Willow Healing Matters, the podcast. We have so much love and gratitude that you have taken the time out of your day to empower you on your healing journey. The views shared by the person being interviewed might not necessarily reflect that of the host and should be used at your own discernment. Trust what resonates for you and follow your heart and soul guidance. If you have any underlying medical conditions or mental health issues, please consult with your healthcare provider before pursuing any of the recommendations. Likewise, you can always contact the person being interviewed to find out more information. This can be found in the show notes. Remember to activate, align, heal, empower, and find love in everything that you do.